Articles from The Labor Standard by Friedrich Engels. First article, To the Working Men of Europe in 1877, Part 1, published March 3, 1878. The past year has been an eventful and fruitful one for the working class of Europe. Great progress has been made in almost all countries with regard to the organization and extension of a workingmen's party. Unity, threatened at one time by a small but active sect, has been virtually restored. The working class movement has forced itself more and more into the foreground of everyday politics, and, a sure sign of approaching triumph, political events, no matter what turn they took, always turned out, in some way or other, favorable to the progress of that movement. At its very outset, the year 1877 was inaugurated by one of the greatest victories ever gained by working men. On the 10th of January, the triennial elections, by universal suffrage, for the German Parliament (Reichstag) took place. Elections which, ever since 1867, have given the German Workingmen's Party an opportunity of counting their strength and parading before the world their well-organized and ever-increasing battalions. In 1874, 400,000 votes fell to the candidates of labor. In 1877, more than 600,000. 10 workingmen candidates were elected on the 10th, while 24 more had to be balloted in for the supplementary elections which took place a fortnight after. Of these 24, only a few were actually returned, all other parties uniting against them. But the important fact remained that in all the large towns and industrial centers of the empire, the working class movement had advanced with great strides, and that all these electoral districts were certain to fall into their hands at the next ballotting in 1880. Berlin, Dresden, the whole of the Saxon manufacturing districts, and Solingen had been conquered, and Hamburg, Breslau, Nuremberg, Leipzig, Brunswick, and Schleswig-Holstein and the manufacturing districts of Westphalia and the Lower Rhine, a coalition of all the parties had scarcely sufficed to defeat the working-class candidates by bare majorities. German democratic socialism was a power, and a rapidly growing one, with which henceforth all other powers in the country, governing or otherwise, would have to reckon. The effect of these elections was enormous. The middle class were seized with a perfect panic, all the more so as their press had constantly represented social democracy as dwindling down into insignificance. The working class, elated at their own victory, continued the struggle with renewed vigor and upon every available battlefield, while the workingmen of other countries, as we shall see, not only celebrated the victory of the Germans as a triumph of their own, but were stimulated by it to fresh exertions in order not to be left behind in the race for the emancipation of labor. The rapid progress of the Workingmen's Party in Germany is not brought without considerable sacrifices on the part of those who take a more active part in it. Government prosecutions and sentences of fine, and oftener of imprisonment, hail down upon them, and they have long since had to make up their minds to passing the greater part of their lives in prison. Although most of these sentences are for short terms, a couple of weeks to 3 months, long terms are by no means of rare infliction. Thus, in order to protect the important mining and manufacturing district of Saarbrücken from the infection by social democratic poison, 2 agitators have recently been sentenced to 2 years and a half each for having ventured upon this forbidden ground. The elastic laws of the empire offer plenty of pretexts for such measures, and where they are not sufficient, the judges are mostly quite willing to stretch them to the point required for a conviction. A great advantage to the German movement is that the trades organization works hand in hand with the political organization. The immediate advantages offered by the trades organization draw many an otherwise indifferent man into the political movement, while the community of political action holds together and assures mutual support to the otherwise isolated trades unions. The success obtained in the elections to the German parliament has encouraged our German friends to try their chance on other electoral fields. Thus, in 2 of the state parliaments, in the smaller states of the empire, they have succeeded in electing working men and have also penetrated into a good many town councils. In the Saxon manufacturing districts, many a town is governed by a social democratic council. The suffrage being restricted in these elections, no great result can be hoped for. Still, every seat carried helps to prove to the governments and the middle class that henceforth they will have to reckon with the working men. But the best proof of the rapid advance of conscious working class organization is in the growing number of its periodical organs in the press. And here we have to overstep the boundaries of Bismarck's empire, for the influence and action of German social democracy is in no ways limited by these. There were publishing in the German language on the 31st of December 1877, in all, no less than 75 periodicals in the service of the Workingmen's Party. Of these in the German Empire, 62, amongst which 15 organs of as many trades unions, in Switzerland 3, in Austria 3, Hungary 1, America 6, 75 in all, more than the number of workingmen's organs in all other languages put together. After the Battle of Sedan in September 1870, the Executive Committee of the German Workingmen's Party told their constituents that by the results of the war, the center of gravity of the European working class movement had been shifted from France to Germany, and that the German workmen had thus become invested with a higher trust and with new responsibilities, which required on their part renewed exertions. The year 1877 has proved the truth of this, and has proved, at the same time, the proletariat of Germany to have been in no wise inferior to the task of temporary leadership imposed upon it. Whatever mistakes some of the leaders may have made, and they are both numerous and manifold, the masses themselves have marched onward resolutely, unhesitatingly, and in the right direction. Their conduct, organization, and discipline form a marked contrast to the weakness, irresolution, servility, and cowardice so characteristic of all middle-class movements in Germany. But while the German middle class has closed its career by sinking down into a more than Byzantine adulation of, quote, William the Victorious, and by surrendering itself, bound hand and foot to the wayward will of one Bismarck, the working class is marching from victory to victory, helped onwards and strengthened even by the very measures which government and middle class contrive in order to suppress it. You have reached the end of Articles from the Labor Standard by Friedrich Engels. First article, To the Working Men of Europe in 1877, Part 1. Click on the links at the end of this video to go to the playlist, or the next chapter if it's available. If you enjoy this content and would like to support the channel, please like and subscribe.